1400 years ere seed sown. Truth was twisted, its seeds were grown. Break the lies, spark the mission. Welcome to Quranic Inquisition.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Peace of the Lord to all of you. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, namaste. Welcome to the show. Today we are here with our friend Noel from Malta, who is going to talk to us about quite a few interesting stuff. Hello, Noel. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Assalamu alaikum. Hello to you and to the audience. Thank you for inviting me here. And I'm fine, thank you.
Great. Well, as you know, I'm a big, I absolutely love Malta. I've been there a number of times, and I was always fascinated by the language because it's almost like it's a blend between Arabic, French, English, Italian. It's a wonderful language. It just feels weird as well seeing Arabic names on street names there in Arabic, also in English, and all sorts. So when we spoke, and then you mentioned that the Arabic that was used in Malta seems to have maybe given us clues to an earlier version of Arabic that was used in the Quran. So that's actually very exciting. So anyway, this is the first time that we're going through this material. So Noel, over to you. If you need anything, I'm right here.
Well, thank you for the introduction. What I want to say is that actually Maltese is an Arabic variety. So it's one of the Arabic dialects, but it has also influences from other languages like Sicilian, Old Italian, New Italian, English. But a big difference is that it's not written in the Arabic script, but it's written in the Latin script. So as far as I'm aware, it's the only Arabic variety which is not written in the Arabic script, but written in the Latin script. So yes, and as we talked, this material was also, we made it we prepared it for, let's say,
Mail at Islamic Regions.
Yes. So it was prepared for, and thank you for the invitation to come and do like a short part of it here. So I will not go through what is Maltese and like this thing, but we'll talk about what is most relevant to the topic of discussion. So what is Arabic? And I started with this part, what is Arabic? And I think this episode will complement the episode that was done by Cash. So it is actually a literature review of what is out there, okay? But before we actually talk about what is Arabic, I think we should take a step back and build the foundations, right? So we should forget a little bit about what is Arabic and then go about what is a language, right? And I really like this definition that I found on Wordnik, that a language is the communication of thoughts and feelings through a system of arbitrary signals. For example, voice, gestures, and written, right? And here what we have to think about, because we think a lot about words and language, is that we're thinking about communication, but through arbitrary signals. And that word arbitrary is very important, right? So according to Owens, it is something that even linguists don't really know what it is, right? Still, it's a bit fuzzy. But certainly it's not unintelligibility, because, for example, we have Swedish and Norwegian. They are both mutually intelligible, and yet they are two languages. Whereas on the other hand, the Chinese dialects are mutually unintelligible, but they are not considered as both of them separate languages, but they're considered dialects of Chinese. And so a language, when we talk about a language, it's something that is more associated with the concept of nationhood. So for example, both Maltese and Nigerian Arabic are Arabic varieties, that are somewhat cut off from the main Arabic. However, the Nigerian Arabs view their Arabic as part of the Arabic world, whereas because they identify as Arab, whereas the Maltese they don't identify as Arab, and therefore the Maltese is thought of as a language. And therefore, the difference between a language and a dialect is not really linguistic, but more nationalistic. And that's why, for example, Max Weinreich he said a language is a dialect with an army and a navy. Okay, so a language is a dialect with an army and a navy. But what is a dialect in reality, right? And this is why, if you start in recently, there's not much talk about language or dialect, but more standard versus non-standard. So, and the dialect is a form of a language that differs from the standard by features such as grammar, vocabulary, and accent, and could be associated with particular region or social background. So here we're seeing something that is more, let's say, so there is the language, which is the one that has the army, that has the power, and then within it there are, or next to it, there are other varieties. And if we look at it from a geographic perspective, then what we have is more of a dialect continuum, right? For example, let's say if you have the red language and the green language, they are the standard, but within them, they change slowly, one goes to the other. And let's say we have the red area, then those that are further apart, it's harder for them to understand each other than those that are near to each other. And then we have also the accent. So the difference between the dialects is the differences in pronunciation and grammar and vocabulary. And then we have the accent, which are the differences in the pronunciation itself. Or sorry, just the differences in the pronunciation. And we can drill further, and therefore we can even divide these dialects into different sub-dialects, so to speak, and you can drill until you come to the personal. And therefore a language is also something which every individual decides to utter, but then as a community they agree on how to speak in a certain way, the arbitrary signals. If we talk about languages, they also evolve, either through innovation or influence from other languages. And unlike in paleontology, they can also be influenced from the past. A word can be revived as well. For example, lately during the pandemic, in the government of Malta then popularized the word imshia, for example, in Malta. Now, how does language change through time? So we look at Owens, for example, describes there is for example, there is a linear language, which is a language that does not change over time, for example, Icelandic. A linear language, like English, which goes from one state to another. And then there is the multilinear, for example, Arabic, right, which has different speech communities that are in whose language the language is changing differently. Now there is also the concept of maintenance versus shift. So maintenance is the retention of the language in at least one aspect of life, whereas shift is the replacement, is the total replacement. And therefore that's why we talk about substratal language, adstratal language. So if the shift is complete, then for example, Coptic to Arabic, that is the substratal language, whereas if it's an incomplete shift, then people are able to speak both languages. For example, Berber in North Africa. And Verstich, for example, he says that most studies, they study the effects of the adstrated languages on Arabic, but not a lot of studies study the effect of Arabic on the adstrated language themselves. And he also says that the influence of Arabic was felt whenever Islam spread beyond the border of the Arabic Empire. So Arabic is kind of tied to Islam. This is what Verstich says. So, in conclusion, languages are constantly changing, sometimes imperceptibly and sometimes more rapidly. And this difference is fuzzy, right? Fuzzy across space, in the sense of geography, right? And also across time. They change consciously or unconsciously. And the difference can be, the triggers can be either geography or natural conditions, customs, religious beliefs, or contact with other peoples. And therefore, the meaning of a word across time and across space may be either more restricted or more broadened. And this makes our job of trying to find, let's say, if there's a word in the Quran, then we have to see, okay, if you compare it with the Arabic of today, with the other Arabic varieties, but you have to keep in mind that also these meanings have changed through time as well. Another aspect that may be also interesting is what Al-Jallad writes in this paper here, of this thing in the psyche of the Arabs. It's not really in Maltese, or in the Maltese people, but more in the Arabs, in that they consider their spoken language as somehow corrupt. And therefore, if they see, like, let's say, so which is very interesting. What I wanted to allude to is that it is interesting that, for example, the Hadith, they have like a sense of the oral tradition that is very strong. But when it comes to their own variety, then they say, no, because the written word, which is the classical Arabic, is stronger than our written word, which we have learned from our ancestors. Let's say.
Okay, yes, one question on that. So, do you mean that we know that the Quran has many problems and with the grammar, with the pronunciation, with tons of problems, and they are educating people to tell them, no, the Quran is perfect. Those things that are there are perfect. So when you say something in the normal spoken Arabic, which actually doesn't match the Arabic, that is because the spoken language is inferior. Simply like that. The Quran is perfect,
but not
and
the
is the
Quran.
standard.
Not the Quran exactly, the classical Arabic, because there is a difference between Quranic Arabic and classical Arabic, as you shall see later on. So Quranic Arabic is something that is, Al-Jallad concludes that Quranic Arabic is a different variety to classical Arabic. So you can say, for example, Tunisian and Syrian, right? Something like that. You have to, when you think about Quranic Arabic and classical Arabic. So when the Arabs compare their dialect, they don't compare with Quranic Arabic, they compare with the classical Arabic. This is, and even the some scholars, for example, as Al-Jallad is saying in this paragraph, right? Is okay?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Okay, so let's look at some examples in practice. For example, in Maltese we have 3 words to say for carrots. You can say carrotti and sonnaria, which are the standard. But we also, if we look at the dialects, we have sfunnaria, right? For example, here we have sfunnaria and sfinnaria. So why 3 words for the same object? Well, carrotti is obvious from Italian, carote, or maybe from English, carrots. But sonnaria comes from zanahoria, which ultimately comes from sfenneria, and sfinneria comes directly from sfinneria. Another example, for tomatoes, we have some people call tomatoes tadam, and others they call them tufir. Why? Okay, the standard is tadam. Most people they know it as tadam, but many farmers, especially, they still call it tadam tufir, which in Maltese mean apples. So what are they? Why has this change come about? Right? So on the standard Maltese, we have tadam for tomatoes and tufir for apples. In certain dialects, we have still tufir for tadam, sorry, for apples, and tufir tabelludia for apples. Okay, so we have the same word, but it means different thing in the different Maltese varieties now. And it's because initially it was tufir ta Adam, so the apple of Adam, and that means the tomato, okay? Then it became tufir tadam, and finally tadam. So here we're seeing a progression. This is the source, whoever wants to read it. We also see it, this was brought, I think Cash said about this as well. For example, the lahem or laham, is it bread, as in Aramaic and Hebrew, or Arabic and Maltese, including Maltese, sorry, meat, right? So this is, again, we have the same process going on, okay? Cash actually has a very interesting explanation for this, and this is that lahm in Arabic is because of the Eucharist, let's say, because the Eucharist is the in the form of a bread, but also we're having the body of Christ, right? When we are when we're having the Holy Communion, and so he has this hypothesis that maybe this is why the change can be. It's very interesting. The process is ongoing. These are words which are quite recent, of recent origin, in which the Maltese that don't know Italian or English, how they are interpreted. And the last one, for example, was by one liquid membrane, right? By my relative, and he told me wiki membrane, right? So from liquid membrane, wiki membrane. I thought he was talking about wikis, but I know that he's not so much into computers and like that, so it cannot be them, right? And then I understood that wiki actually means liquid. And like most languages today, there is this salt from the English language, right? And we're seeing it, the change from the Semitic to the English. For example, il-ġor timmuvja, tqabbel tikkumpara, talba rikjesta, taħmi tibbejkja, tredda tibbrestfidja. And for example, in Italian, fermare to stoppare, right? Tikkumpara or richiesta, they can also not be from English, but earlier from Italian as well. So this is something that's still ongoing, right? The language that is constant, that is exactly constantly changing. Something related more to the topic of the channel. The Christian Prince once he said that Allah actually is derived from the Aramaic moon god Al-Lah, right? So I'm not going to go into the merits of whether this of the truthfulness of this argument, right? But from a linguistic point of view, does it make sense, right? So, and he basically used, for example, this the two verses of Al-Fatiha, Bismillah, Bismi, and he Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, Rabb al-Alamin. So what do we have? We have Allah, and there, and that alif goes away and becomes a kasra, and from Allah it becomes lillah. So the God, the lah, becomes to lah. This is the argument. So Arabic Allah, from Aramaic al-lah. Is there something similar in Maltese? And actually there is, with water. So in Maltese, water, and I got this information about Maltese from a lecture that I attended of Dr. Alvin Vella. So ilma, which is water, right? From the Arabic al-ma. And if we want to say the water, then we add another article, lilma. Boiling water is ma skhun in Arabic. And what is interesting that in Maltese we don't say ilma skhun, but we say miskhun, right? So this ma is preserved for boiling water, but not for water, right? So this the adding or of the joining together of the article with the noun alma becomes ilma together occurred only in water but not in boiling water. If we want to say the boiling water in Maltese, then we say il miskhun. There's also another article by Martian in which the classical Arabic is compared with Quranic Arabic and compared with Maltese. And then he then makes a list of all the differences between classical Arabic, Quranic Arabic, and Maltese. If we want, we can even do some examples later on. Now, we have to be very careful because sometimes there can be some pitfalls, okay? So once I saw this from the friend of the channel, Islamic Origins, right? Maqam Ibrahim, which is the standing place. And why I was specifically about the word maqam? Because in Maltese we have im. And it can be either standing or to worship. And even here in Wikipedia, we have a toponym, Hajar Im, which is a megalithic temple complex in Malta, right? And even here in the translation, they're translating it standing and worshipping, right? Both senses. But in reality, if we look then at the dictionary, right, what we have is that the roots are different. One is kaf, alif, mim, and the other one is kaf, waw, and mim, right? So they are simply relating to standing. But it's simply that in North African Arabic, Andalusi Arabic, and Syriac, then the kam becomes kim, right? And that's in the dictionary by Aquilina. So the etymology of a word is not always straightforward, and as Agius gives this example, for example, Maltese, we have the word for altar boy, zabbati. It can either come directly from Syriac or Chaldean, abach, or in Chaldean, aboch, or through Arabic, or through Latin, right? And that's the end of today's of this presentation. I hope it was interesting, and the aim of it was to make the foundation, right? So that on this we can build on the question itself. What is Arabic, right?
Okay, so that's very good. It's the starting to set the theme of how the language would have evolved. So I have a couple of questions about what you have shown. Is it fair to say that then the definite article in Arabic is alif lam, and in Maltese has retained basically the same structure, but is il instead of al?
Exactly. Not only in Maltese, but also in Maghrebi dialects. So North Africa, basically.
Right. And there is one thing that I always found interesting in the Quran, that the name of Abraham is actually spelled, I think it's in 3 different ways. And basically from Abraham, that everybody would know to pronounce it with starting a sound, it became Ibrahim. And seeing as in Maltese, it went from al to il. Do you know if there is any connection or anything to do with the name of Abraham also becoming Ibrahim?
No, but Thomas Alexander has a great talks about this in his Quranic what is it called? Quranic 3-minute Quranic studies, something like that. And I think it's actually an Aramaic that Ibrahim, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember it exactly, but he talks a lot about it. We can send the link. We can write the link in the description of where he talks about this, actually.
Okay, great.
But I don't
Yeah,
remember it exactly. But I know that it is Aramaic influence from the change of Ibrahim to Abraham, if I remember correctly.
okay. Or okay, cool. And then one of the things that you showed here was the colors. I really like the colors, where you actually had basically you have different languages, and if we think about it in a way that say is applicable to English speakers. So if we have in the UK, for instance, we would think that English, the proper English would be the one from Cambridge or Oxford or a region like that. And then as you start to travel north, English starts to acquire a bit of a difficult accent, particularly for not for people who are not native English speakers. And the moment that you get to Manchester and then north to Scotland, the language becomes very difficult to the point that I have met some Scottish people and I've told them, look, I find it difficult to understand Scottish. The accent is so incredibly hard. And they say, that's fine. I'm Scottish and there are lots of Scottish people I can't understand. So I got that quite a few times. So if we're thinking in the region of Arabia, how do you imagine that things were? Do you think there was one region where they would speak what, let's say, like the Queen's Arabic, the proper Arabic, and then as it goes away from that land, from that center hub, then you have all of the dialects and they start to spread until then they reach the regions where they have Aramaic and Sabaic. Do you have an idea of how you think everything would have been spread out?
We'll talk about it in the next episode.
Okay, great.
I
So
would.
it's a teaser. So make sure that you
Yes.
like, subscribe, and click the notifications button so that you find the answer on the next show. Okay, great. So this is phenomenal. Look forward to actually finding out more of this stuff. The examples that you actually showed are really good. The one with Adam and basically tomato and apple, it's a little bit of an unusual one that you would have the same word used for tomato and also for apple in two different places, and it's the same word. That's quite curious. I would
In the
struggle to
same
find
place.
something like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Malta is not the biggest country on earth. It's actually quite small. So I
Yeah.
suppose that might cause some confusion to some farmers every once in a while. All right. So
No,
thank you,
because most
Noel.
of them they know the standard, so they may change the and actually it's um they would know that most people, they not most people but a lot of people, I think actually it's fair to say most people, they don't know that tadam in certain varieties of Maltese can mean tomatoes or apples. And this is interesting as well, maybe to reinforce the point. So we have Arabic, different varieties. Maltese is a variety of Arabic, but within Maltese, then we can have different varieties of Maltese. And this is the same for the other Arabic dialects. And you can continue to parse through, in different varieties. It depends on how much the microscope you're going to go through.
Right. And okay. Okay, cool. So thank you, Noel. That has been great
Thank you.
as an introduction. So I look forward to seeing what other stuff you're going to show us in relation to the Arabic language, the Quran, Malta, and all of that. And even if you can explain a little bit of the history of how Arabic made it into Malta, that would be great because most people, they know the history of their own countries. And the moment that they go a little bit outside of that, only historians would know. So thank you very much for this. This has been great. Noel, would you like to say some departing words before we go?
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Thank
Any
you.
final comments?
No, it's okay.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much, Noel, and thank you everyone watching. Let us know if you have any questions about the stuff that Noel is going to be showing here on the channel. So please leave your comments below, and we will make sure that Noel actually pick them up when is the right time. So
Yes,
thank you very much for watching. Yep.
This is a literature review, and if I made a mistake or something, please, this is very important. We forgot to say it in the beginning. Write the comments in the comment section. I look forward to it.
Yeah, if there's anybody that wants to correct Noel on his Maltese, please go ahead as well, and we can have fun with that. All right, so thank you very much for watching. I hope that all of you are well, that you will have a good week ahead, and we will see you soon. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
There is only one Quran, right? Every Quran in the world is the same. That's what you've been told. You have been told a lie!
26 of the Quran.
26 different Qurans!
There are 0 Dawa guys apparently left on the planet who are willing to defend Muhammad in a debate.
Everybody can go and read it. This is a book full of mistakes in Arabic, in the grammar, in the spelling, in the pronunciation.
Whoever wrote the Quran made an error because they didn't quite understand what was written in the 7th century in the Torah and the Injil.
As promised, I will give you more than 20 reasons why I left Islam in this video.
We know that stories about Muhammad were made up on an industrial scale.
What in the world is this Injil?